let's finish the evening with a smaller batch of about 6.5 kilo and a fairly hot wok. Let's see how it goes. I will need to be fast in the beginning. So I just shot a video talking about many random things, mainly because I didn't want those first impressions from a travel to vanish while I was busy with other things. But I'm now going to talk about the subject that I plan to talk about this evening, actually. And this is something that is really crucial and that I found out during my trip in Europe and during the tasting sessions. I had 15 tasting sessions with amazing people from many cities, from 10 different cities in Europe, but people came from much further away than those 10 cities. So it was really amazing to meet all those tea enthusiasts. And when I met them, there's really something that shocked me. Something that really contrasts actually with the average knowledge that those people had, because I would say on average those people are more knowledgeable about tea than most tea professionals, such as like people working in a tea shop or things like that. You know, most of the people I met were real tea geeks, and yet there's really something that shocked me. It's that a lot of those, they use tap water to brew the tea, okay? Tap water. And I found out that, because of course in Europe, in most places, you can safely drink the tap water, and it's perfectly healthy to drink it. Now the problem is, in most places in Europe, the tap water is hard. It means there is a lot of, how do you call that? Like HCO3, you know, the lime. There's a lot of lime in the water. So usually you see it in your washing machine or in your kettle. And indeed, before leaving China, I bought a brand new Gongdao Bei, like just a glass pitcher. And like all glass pitchers in China, it was perfectly clear. And as I made progress through my journey in those during these tea sessions, as I progressed in my journey in Europe, across Europe, I found this little glass to be more and more tainted with lime. And it happened because during some sessions we also used the tap water, the local tap water, to brew tea. And at some point I didn't even have bottled water with me. I got a stock from France. My car was filled with bottled water, good bottled water. But you know that these tea enthusiasts come to the session particularly thirsty, and we had an average of 15 liters of water per session. So very quickly, actually, I ran out of this water. And so then I had to go to the local supermarket, or thankfully have people go for me while I was doing the session, to go to the supermarket to buy a good bottled water brand. And it was an opportunity, actually. When you had no choice, you had to use the tap water to brew the tea. And what does it do when you use hard water? So of course I say you need to buy bottled water, because you can find some soft bottled water, but you have to read the prints for that. You have the total dissolved elements. I think it's called TDS, something like that. And usually if it's below 150, it's okay. And if it's between 50 and 80, it's even better. So what happens when you use very hard water, such as most of the tap water in Europe, when you brew tea? Well, first, what you can notice is you get a much darker liquor, a darker soup than usual. And if the water is very hard, it can even be muddy. You cannot see clearly through the tea soup. So actually, that's something I learned on my journey Another reason why you would have a muddy soup, it's not because of the tea quality, it's because of the water quality. You use too hard a water. Again, it's not a problem, it's not unhealthy, but it will really hinder the potential of this tea. To the point that, in my opinion, if you're brewing a really good tea with tap water, you're really wasting good leaves, wasting money, and wasting your time, because you won't notice a huge difference between a good tea and a bad tea with hard water. Why? Because in the hard water there are many ions, and those ions they will bind with the aromatic molecules. But your mouth, your nose is supposed to bind with the molecules, and that's how you smell it, and that's how you feel the bitterness, for example, in your mouth. Okay, when those molecules bind with your receptors. And when you have hard water, a lot of these compounds will bind with the ions in solution in the water, and it means that they will be unreachable by your tasting organs, and so it means that you won't taste anything. And this is really what happens if you... Okay, I'm going to take some fire off, and since it's the last wok of the night, I take most of the fire off because it's getting a bit hot. But yeah, if the water is too hard, you won't have that much fragrance, you won't have that much bitterness. It's like listening to music with a pillow stuck on the speakers. Okay, you can get a rough idea of what the tea is like, but it's really muffled. And the best thing you can do to improve your tea experience is to buy a bottled water with 50 to 100 milligram per liter of total dissolved ions. For American friends, I think the unit they use is grain per gallon, and that would be like between 1 and 3 grains per gallon. That's what you need to look for in terms of bottled water. And when I raise this topic, it seems a bit sensitive in Europe because people have are very aware of ecology and don't want to damage the planet by, I don't know, buying some bottled water which is polluting and will increase the amount of garbage you have. So first, I think you can try to find some waters which they could sell in like big 5 or 10 liters plastic bottles. But I would say that even if you buy water in smaller bottles, it's not that big of a problem. Well, first because maybe you can save your soul by arguing that while you're drinking tea, you're not drinking Coca-Cola or beer, which would be as polluting, as damaging on the environment, because they also come in bottles and they're also heavy to transport. So that could be one argument. The second argument is that plastic bottles can be well recycled, or if your city incinerates the trash, well, they count as fuel, and in most cases in those incinerators they need to add fuel because all the trash will not burn by itself, and so that when there's a lot of plastic in the garbage, they don't need to add as much fuel. So that can be maybe arguments to save your ecological soul. And then my third argument would be that if you care so much about the planet, then just take the train instead of the plane. Drive smoothly, don't push too hard on that accelerator so as not to waste fuel, and maybe reconsider your travel plans. But tea is probably such an important part of your life that I think you can really afford treat yourself with bottled water without feeling guilty about it. And I can tell you that it will really enhance the quality of your tasting experience. And I can say that I would almost say to my customers that if you use tap water, if you don't buy bottled water, maybe there's not even much point in buying expensive teas because it will be hard to feel the difference. So now that you know that, and if you were using tap water before, you should rejoice yourself because you will have a much better tea experience, I think, with bottled water. Now that's true for raw pour, maybe even more for green tea and even more for Japanese green tea. It's a bit less of a problem using hard water for highly oxidized teas. So like aged pour, high oxidized oolongs, black tea, ripe pour, they are not so sensitive. The main difference actually is that it tastes sharper. You can smell better the fragrance, and the taste is sharper. So it's really important for teas in which you want to enjoy the bitterness and astringency, maybe a bit of sourness, for example, for the black teas. But if you want some smooth, sweet tea, then using a hard water can be okay. Now, an advice from the tea enthusiasts who use bottled water is don't use distilled water, or don't use water with too low mineral content, because below 30 milligram per liter or below 1 grain per gallon, then you're going to start to have a very harsh soup, and maybe it's something that you don't want either. It's still always good to have a little bit of minerals. It kind of adds sugar to the tea, if you like that kind of analogy. I'm sure you don't really like it, but anyway, it's just a bit smoother. So yeah, if you don't do that, that's really what I recommend to do after watching this video. Just go buy some soft mineral water, and I'm sure you will have a blast with your next tea session. And that's it for today. I'm just gonna cook for a few minutes. Oh yeah, just to finish, why didn't I know that before? It's because in China the water, the tap water is not drinkable, so we always buy bottled water. But in China it's very convenient. They deliver it in really big tanks, and so we never really have this problem. All the water that you get delivered is quite soft. And some people think you cannot drink the tap water in China because the water is too polluted. Well, the bad news is that in most places in the world you cannot drink the water in nature, unless you're close to the source in the mountain. In most places the water is unsafe to drink, and we actually have to treat the water and use a lot of chemicals to make that water safe to drink. So I would argue it's actually more polluting. It's worse for the environment to have drinkable water on the tap, because in the end the use of tap water, like the part that you drink, is just a very tiny percentage of the total tap water you use. So in many countries they choose to consider the tap water unsafe and to sell bottled water. And since everybody buys them, there are solutions with larger tanks which are recyclable. Yeah, and so this will be about the end, because you can see that I would say it was a bit high. Maybe the temperature was a bit high for this wok, and I don't want to burn the leaves. I think it's okay. But I'm going to take them out, and I'm going to let them cook just a little bit for maybe 5 minutes in the basket to have them be steamed a bit more, because it was a small batch. So you see, I need to find my basket, which I found it cannot reach. Let me just flip that. Okay, I have my basket. I will just keep those leaves inside here, and you can come and have a look here. This is the first batch we made. This is the first batch. So from the tea gardens down our home, and it smells really good. And this is the second batch, same material as this one. And this one doesn't smell as fragrant, but there's something inside that really, I'm looking forward to drinking this one because it's from our own tea gardens, no guan. Usually it's not the most fancy tea when you drink it, but it has a good chachi and a lot of huigan. So we'll know tomorrow. And meanwhile, I'm gonna do the rolling and go to bed. And that's it for today. So see you later. And bye bye.